Hello, everyone. Welcome to this BCFM webinar. So today we're ending our series on real operating revenue opportunities for farmers markets. And today's topic is ongoing operating revenues. It will feel like an intimate webinar today, so feel free to raise your hand, use the chat box like usually, and let's have an engaging conversation if we can. So our first webinar of this series was on covering emergency and recovering funding. So in this webinar, if you did not have the chance to attend to it, we covered Canadian emergency business account application, regional relief recovery fund. Sorry, I'm reading my notes because it's very long as a title for an opportunity, and Canada Emergency 10% wage subsidy. So to listen to the recording, you can just visit our BCFM YouTube channel as usual. So our agenda today, we'll start with a brief introduction. And for today's webinar, again, we have Heather O'Hara, our ED that you know very well, and Melissa Malte, who is the Executive Director of North Fraser Farmers Market Society. We'll briefly cover municipal operating agreements, sponsorship, other funding revenue opportunities, and we'll save some time for a Q&A session at the end. Before we start, I'll just go over the usual housekeeping items. So all attendees right now are muted and your camera are turned off. If you want to speak during the question period, you may raise your hand or let us know using the chat box. As mentioned a few minutes ago, we're not a lot of attendees today, so feel free to raise your hand and ask your question live. It's always helpful to have more than just a few words typed in the chat box. And so if you have any technical difficulties, you can also use the chat box to let us know. Comments and questions for speakers, we'll address them at the end of this webinar session. So let's start with municipal operating agreements. I'll let the stage to Melissa and Heather.
Maybe I'll just do a quick introduction, Melissa. Gab, are you showing the PowerPoint to the participants? No, okay.
I just realized that it was not turned on.
Okay.
For some reason, sorry about that. I'll just try to solve this issue because it's helpful.
There you go. That works.
Good.
That works.
Okay.
Yeah, that works. So I'm going to speak. I want to introduce Melissa on this topic. So thanks everybody for joining us last time and this time as well. I think I'm quite excited about today's webinar for a couple of reasons. One is Melissa's got all this hard lived experience on her own market experience over the years, not just the current market she works with, and other fundraising experience. But there's a couple exciting things in here. We've got a powerhouse person sharing their learned and lived experience with all of us. And two, with regards to the municipal operating agreements, what's really cool about what Melissa's done with her market is establish an operating agreement that has cash attached to it, as opposed to in kind. Okay, so in kind things for municipalities are great, you know, like reduced fees, supporting, you know, like not charging rent in some cases or a reduced rent. But what's really sexy about what she's done is she's getting money from her municipalities to operate her market, and cash is king, or cash is queen, as I like to say. So that's really cool. And I'm interested in learning about what she's done here about municipal operating agreements. And then secondly, in terms of sponsorship experience, is how, you know, what has been successful and effective? Like what are those sponsors need to hear in being able to tailor your marketing, your pitch to the right audience, and what do they care about? So I think we're going to learn a lot about that from Melissa here on that front as well. So with no further ado, over to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Heather. Nice to be called a powerhouse. Very exciting. Okay, so let's get started here. So just to preface, before we get started on the municipal operating agreements, I joined the Fraser North Farmers Market Society last year. And so they've had these agreements in place with Port Coquitlam and the city of Maple Ridge for several years now. So I was not instrumental in starting this process, but I am definitely instrumental in continuing it for our market. So it's something that's very exciting for us that we get to work closely, and I'm going to tell you why it's a good idea for you guys to do the same kind of thing with your municipality. So guess what? You are a valuable commodity, because what the cities want to do more than anything is engage their constituents and engage the folks that are living there in activities. And so I understand now with COVID, it's a little less activity related, but in the conversations that I've had with our liaisons from the cities is that they are so pleased that we are be able to function to engage the space. And that is such an important word, because it's really a good buzzword that's happening with your municipalities. So your market, even if it's pared down to just retail shopping at the moment, is engaging the space, whereas no other community organization is currently doing this right now. So compiling all of your data this summer is a great way to show how valuable you are as a commodity to the market. And you touch on so many different aspects of what the cities are interested in. There's agriculture, if that is in your area. Tourism, every city has a tourism department. Parks, recreation, and culture, which is what we fit under currently in Maple Ridge as well as Port Coquitlam. Economic development, which is a little tougher to break into, but it's one that you can make your case on and really have people understand in those departments how valuable you are as an economic driver in that community. Food security, I know a lot of municipalities have set up food security task force during COVID. And so that's one, especially with the coupon program and the dollars that you bring into your community. That's a really important one. And seniors health and wellness, the farmers markets, you know how important it is to seniors to be able to get out and socialize, even right now if they're just coming to buy a few things. That, like, look at all the things that you touch on with one single event per week. So what can a city provide your market? As Heather touched on, in-kind donations are always a big thing. And so that's equipment, whether it's tents and tables, land, if you can operate in a park or a parking lot, personnel. We actually have dedicated personnel in both Port Coquitlam and Maple Ridge that are there to help us on the day of the event. And promotions. So that's always good to have them boost you on their social media. Some of them have electronic billboards that you can be on. They have internal and external, we call them PSAs, public service announcements, that they can do shout outs for your market. All of those things are really important. They also carry a high dollar value amount, but it's something that, frankly, as a community organization that engages the space, you should be getting those things from your municipality. That should just be a no-brainer. You can also get access to storage, which is such a big deal for us because we don't have the funds to be able to store our stuff in a huge facility. Volunteers are a good one because they always have their own volunteer program. And like I mentioned before, equipment, so tables, chairs, all of that, hand washing stations, things that you may not be able to store that they can store for you. So another aspect to working with the city is that a lot of them have grant applications. So there's usually like multicultural grants, arts grants, like parks and recreation grants, all of these different grants. If we talk about the slide that we had just before, all of those aspects, even the agriculture committee has grants. It's just a matter of asking them, okay, well, what's your budget? What do you have and what can we tap in onto this? So even if they're not able to do an operating agreement with you, they can definitely help you access grants. And most city employees are more than happy to help you figure out how to go through their application forms. So now the operating agreement. So this one's a little bit different. It's where basically the city is contracting out this event to you. Again, they want you to engage the space, bring local food and entertainment, work with community groups, and have all of this engagement happening in their space. So this operating agreement usually takes space over a year period or one season, or it can go through a 3-year period. So, well, I don't know what's happening with your tablets. Sorry, sweetie. So you'll want to sit down with them and figure out what's possible. Like, can you do these operating agreements? How long would they be for? And then what's that magic number that the cities can bring up in order to help you with your operations? What is really good about this is that it can cover your staffing costs. So it's not one of those grants where you don't get paid for your staff. So we get a good number from City of Maple Ridge and an equal number in the City of Poco. And really that goes towards my wages as well as our market manager wages. And it's so helpful to have that with us. Okay. So what you need to do if you don't have these operating agreements in place, or you haven't started sort of tapping into what the city has the potential for you to get, is you need to start forming relationships, because it's all about relationships when it comes to working with your municipality. So you can offer to represent the market on any of the committees that we talked about earlier. Find out what committees have an operating budget, like we talked about. I know, for example, this Agriculture Committee in the City of Maple Ridge has a healthy budget, and they would put on an event fundraiser in conjunction with the farmers market, sort of like a farm to table kind of thing. Invite mayor and council. I'm sure most of you do that already, especially on your opening day. Invite them to do social media shout outs. I invited one of our counselors to do deliveries of veggie bundles for our coupon program, and he showed up at our food hub, took multiple pictures, helped take all the bags away and deliver them to seniors. Who doesn't want to see a city councilor deliver the veggie bundles out to market goers and seniors in need? Like, it's a marriage made in heaven. So if you haven't done so already, I highly recommend doing a presentation to council. That's usually a great way to get your case across. You get a wonderful audience. Usually they video it so that it can be shown to other people. And then what's really important is to have your statistics ready. Nothing speaks more to employees and the city councilors than having your numbers ready for them to see. So which stats are important? It's the number of customers attending the market. That's really important to them. So they want to see the engagement. They want to see how many people are coming. That's super good. Vendor sales for each market. This is where it comes in with your economic development section. So if you go to the economic development department and you say, look, these small businesses that are operating within our downtown core or on the outskirts of the city are making this amount of money. And then they're also branching out to retail stores, or they're thinking about opening up a restaurant, or there's just so many layers to the economic development that can happen. And most of our markets don't even think of tapping into that market, but it's true. Like, the economic development people in your city would be all over this. Speaking to local businesses to see how it affects them on market days, hopefully not in a negative, there's no parking way, but more in like, yeah, people come in and they spend, $25 to $100 on, extra items, or they get ice cream from my store or coffee from the coffee shop. So there's, not only do you have this amazing reach, which the economic benefit study the BCAFM did back in 2012 really helped with some good stats, just to show how many millions of dollars that the markets are indirectly benefiting each city, which is just phenomenal. So you also want to survey your customers to see how much money they're spending in that area. So it's always good to know. And one thing for Parks, Rec, and Culture, they love to know that you're working with all these community groups. So if you know off the top of your head, yeah, we're working with this person from National Indigenous Peoples Day, or I'm working with the Alzheimer's Association, or all the food bank, like collect all of that data. We worked with 20 organizations this season and it benefited them in this way. Parks and Rec love those kinds of metrics. They want to know that you're engaging the space not only for yourself as a market, but that you're this community aggregator and you're bringing in these people from all different aspects. Again, COVID has kind of kiboshed that, but there's no reason why you can't support them through your online presence, whether that's your sharing on social media, if they've got like the food bank is having a donation drive, or there's no reason why you can't add that to your work aspect. And then how do you promote arts at the market? So if you have an arts council in town, this is also an important one. So do you have local artisans? Do you have an artist in residence? Do they do painting at the market? Where are your musicians coming from? All of this can be tied into a funding opportunity from your local city because you're supporting arts in the city. So there are pros and cons of getting into a municipal agreement, and this isn't a grant. This is an operating agreement that you have to sign and work on for the following either 1 year or 3 years, however long it is. So amazing, cash honorarium. Who doesn't love cash? So you get cash from the city, usually at the beginning of the season, so you have this nice cushion for your operating budget. You have dedicated staff that help you on market days. Again, they promote you internally and externally. You can use their equipment. They facilitate nonprofit group partnerships. If I don't know somebody, it's a very good chance that Darlene, our liaison, she knows them and she will introduce us and make that headway into us working together super smoothly. And they also have volunteer programs and access to storage. So these are all the amazing things that you can get when you're working with your city. There are some cons though. So one thing is kind of like a big con, but also something that you just have to learn is that the city is definitely going to be involved in the decisions relating to your market. And so sometimes it takes several different levels of management before that you can get an answer to how you can add more vendors or use a different space. As long as you have the mindset and you understand this, it's really not a problem. But if you're expecting answers right away, you're going to be surprised. It does take a little time. Just making sure that you're mindful to add the city logos to your website, your newsletters, you thank your sponsors. Also, if you're doing a press release, thank your sponsors at the end. They love to see that. They love to know that they're included in all of your marketing. So make sure that you've got that and how you're going to fulfill your marketing. Also the communications, like I said, the press release, and just note that you're basically adding non-market related staff to your market in the, hey Logan, sorry, can you be quiet? I'm on a call. Let's go to your room. Sorry, mom worked from home. And so just understanding that sometimes there's personality clashes between your staff versus other staff, and so you just need to be mindful that these things get cleared up and that everyone's happy and everyone works smoothly together. So whilst you are working with them, they are also working with you. So it's just a matter of opening that communication, talking things through, and figuring out this beautiful middle line to operate with. Okay. And attitude is key. We had a very big shift last year in terms of like our staff and our board. And one thing that I wanted to enforce with our board and our staff is that we're working together with these municipalities. They don't owe us anything and we don't owe them anything. It's really important that we understand that we are working together and then this whole relationship can be super harmonious or it can't. But they don't owe us anything. Like we are there and we are grateful and that's how it should be. And like it should be a grateful, like wonderful relationship both ways. So again, I can't emphasize enough, just open the communications, talk to your city councilors. And sometimes if you're just starting with your relationship and you haven't really gotten into there and you're receiving a lot of no's from people, don't be afraid to go to your city councilors or your mayor or have a sit down and have a chat. Your Chamber of Commerce can be a really good resource to use to open up those pathways to those folks that you may not know, and just start talking to people, because sometimes somebody in the city is just not understanding the concept of what you're trying to pull together, and it just needs another person in that department to step in and just really go over what you're doing. Like nurturing that relationship, just getting in there, having a positive attitude, understanding that they don't owe you and you don't owe them, but you want to work together to engage that space, is probably what will get you farther and what will get you some really wonderful things out of that key relationship.
Hey, Melissa, can I just interject for a minute?
Yeah, you bet.
Great overview there. I think, I mean, there's lots of takeaways, but that notion that you're many things to many people, in other words, your rec dev, your seniors, a seniors gathering place, your arts and culture, your community group, your agriculture, food security is really important, because it just opens your mind to all the relationships and all the feelers. I just realized I'm not on webcam. All the feelers and the tentacles that all those things lead to new paths and new people and new money, frankly.
Yeah.
And making the case to all of them is different, because they all care about different things. But at the end of the day, it all benefits your market. So that's cool. Just a question. Do you have, are you open or comfortable sharing sort of the range of cash you've received in these kinds of municipal operating agreements in the past, or aware of elsewhere, or this time, or right now?
Yeah, we receive $8,000 from each municipality.
So in your case, there's 2 or 3, right?
2, yeah.
Okay.
So but that doesn't include all the in-kind donation as well. We get tables, tents, chairs, staff, hand washing stations, storage units. Like this is probably like $15,000 to $20,000 worth, and the portion of it for cash is $8,000.
Okay, per municipality, so $16,000 time, like between the two of them, right? Okay, very good. That's good context. Thank you very much. And secondly is, we'll get to some of the questions from the participants, but the UBCM conference, it's a virtual conference, is coming up this September, and BCFM has advanced a resolution to go forward for the to the UBCM conference around establishing farmers markets as essential services formally. So now that said, I don't want to jump the gun here, but we're just trying to figure out right now what it's been approved at 1 or 2 of the councils in the province, which is part of the step and process to bring it forward. What I don't know right now, and I want to speak too much out of turn, is how it ends up on the voting floor at UBCM. But that municipal relationship is really important, as we all especially learned in COVID. And I think the silver lining of COVID is going to be deepening that relationship and getting municipalities to value farmers markets and invest in farmers markets, as Melissa has done successfully in her own municipality. So just a little comment about that. We're just pending and waiting to find out what the process is for the resolution. So we'll keep the membership apprised of that as we know more about that vote and all that stuff. So, okay, that's enough for me.
That's really exciting, actually. And I think now more than ever, it's great for us to be known as an essential service. And it was funny because when COVID first started, or the lockdown and all of that stuff, there was some resistance for us to operate because we're seen as an event. But that shift in thinking turned very quickly to food security, very, very quickly. And then they realized, oh my goodness, we need to get these guys back because they're direct access to farmers, especially, and local food, and just generating some engagement and activity in a space that currently has nothing. And it was just like, we're definitely essential.
Yeah, no, I think, this is being proactive for the future too, you know what I mean? In terms of like it being understood more than just this one-off, to set the stage and that foundation about essential service is really important. Yeah. So, yeah, anyways, okay. Gab, you probably have questions from folks, eh? Or not?
We don't have questions so far. I'm asking questions to attendees.
So, I mean, I'm happy to move to sponsorship.
Yeah, let's go to sponsorship.
Awesome. All right, sponsorships. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because it's so fun, and I'm a little unconventional in how I approach it because for me, it's not about you, it's totally about them. So for sponsorship, you need to shift your thinking. While farmers markets are lovely and they're beautiful and they bring together people and it's all like heartwarming, is that going to bring your sponsors money? That's what they want to know. So you need to understand that essentially the person who's going to sponsor your market is a business person, and they want to make sure that they get money and some return on the investment that they make in your market. So it's not so much like you're trying to sell them your cause, because they're aware of your cause. If they come to the market, if you've done your research, they know what you're doing, but that's not going to bring them in. What's going to bring them in is why they need you. And so what do you have to sell to your sponsors? So how do you find sponsors? So that's a really good question, because I feel like just going out there and doing a blank, like, hey, I'm looking for sponsors, you know, your return is going to be very low. You'll probably have a few people interested, and then you're going to go through the process and steps, and then they might fizzle out or they might not. That's a lot of time invested, and honestly, finding sponsorships and grants and all of that stuff is a big job. So you want to make sure that who you're going to is already invested in your market, so they already have that backstory that you don't need to sell them on. So companies that share your social media posts, and companies that board members are attached to, or maybe their partner is part of, high profile business members. I can't tell you, real estate agents are like gold. Real estate agents, they love to sponsor farmers markets. Mortgage brokers, anyone in that kind of like service industry that doesn't have a tangible like product that they sell, totally awesome for sponsors. This is where you have to go to networking events and just get to know your community. Just like the municipal agreements, it's all about nurturing those relationships with your stakeholders. I love to check out the local paper, see who's doing really big ads, or when they have A-lists, like who are these top companies? Who's the top real estate agent? Because those are people that are out there, that are spending money on advertising, that are understanding the benefits of being part of the community. Also, I can't say enough, Chamber of Commerce. They can put out information in their newsletters about you. They hold networking events, maybe not now with COVID, but online. Being part of the BIA is a big one too, because they have a network of businesses, usually in your area, that you can tap into. I myself am part of a women in business group in Maple Ridge, and like I can't tell you how many people I've contacted to do work stuff for the market from that group. So there's a lot of different groups that you can tap into with potential sponsors that are looking to make an investment in marketing. So now that you've found a sponsor, so let's say you find a real estate agent and you know that like they're really keen and really interested in the market because you've seen them shop there, they kind of hang out, they share your posts. So take a look at their website, take a look at their social media. Do they love to cook? Are they talking about food? Are they talking about community connecting? Is their website, do they donate to something? Find that common ground that is really going to speak to them. Check out what their target demographic is. Is it young families moving into the neighborhood? Is it older folks that are downsizing and leaving the nest? Finding out their demographic is key. And sometimes that can be really difficult if you don't have anything to follow up with. So give them a call. Don't email, because people just won't check their email for this kind of thing. So just give them a call, say, hey, you know, I'm Melissa, I'm calling from the farmers market. I noticed that you come shop and you post on it. I'm super grateful. I think that we might have a really good cross-promotional opportunity for you. So if you want to give me a few little details about what you're looking for, then I can tailor something specific to what you need. And then when you're collecting all that information, you can write a really good sponsors package that's specific to what they need. And that's just so easy to do that and then present it to them. So once you start your package, so when you're thinking about the package itself, it's hard to sponsor the market as a whole. Like you have to think in terms of what is sexy to sell, because that's what you're doing. You are selling the market. So programs, super sexy, the music tent, the kids activities, food demos, all of that, people love to have ownership. So when they're out there business marketing and they're like, oh yeah, I sponsor the music stage at the local farmers market, and they have a tent with a banner that says, you know, sponsored by so-and-so. That is a sexy visual that you can take photos of and bring to the sponsor and say, hey, these guys did it. Would you be interested in doing that too for this month or the season? COVID, of course, has kind of kiboshed that. So what I've done instead is I've turned around and sponsored market days. Again, not as sexy as sponsoring a specific program that they take ownership of, but I feel like sponsoring a day is a lot less vague than sponsoring the entire market. If you can get a sponsor for the entire market at, you know, a 3,000 or 5,000 level, hey, more power to you. But when you're approaching smaller businesses, sometimes it's hard for them to wrap their heads around that big number. So sponsoring it, breaking it into a day or a month is really, through COVID, probably the best idea at this point. So you can tailor the sponsorship package to each sponsor, and I highly recommend this. Every time I see a sponsorship form come in and it's like generic and it's for everybody, I'm just like, really? You couldn't make that extra little time and effort? Because that's where the money is. It's going in there and saying, hey, I noticed on your website that your vision statement is that you want to connect to families and that you love to serve families. Guess what? We do that too. And this X amount of people come to the market with their families and their kids, and they're all moving into the area and they're exploring their farmers market. Doesn't it make sense that the two of us partner together? That's the conversation you need to have. And that's what your sponsorship package needs to look like. So put their logo on it, put their name on it, make them envision what that sponsorship would look like. See, I told you I really like sponsorships. This is gets me excited. Think outside the tier program. Nobody wants to do a gold, silver, or bronze. Come on, guys, we can do things differently. I mean, I get it, we do like the cute little vegetables and things, but like, again, that's really generic. Break it down to like a menu of things. Like your signage at the market is like 100 this much, and we also have an add-on that you can add. People love online shopping right now. Think of it as a cart. What do you have? Your base is this, and then you can add on and add in your social media newsletter, a takeover for Instagram. Like you can add those things and make it $500, or you can keep it at the base level of $200. Start thinking differently. It doesn't need to be this tier of like 1,800 or 600, because what if they only have $250? Are you going to say no because you don't have that specific tier and you remember? Like you're going to tailor it to exactly what they need, and that's really important to getting their money and their satisfaction. Again, it's about what they need. So this is kind of a pre-COVID sponsorship agreement that I came up with one of our local realtors. So we had the BC Summer Games booked, which sadly did not go ahead. So that was a huge selling feature for me because there would be literally thousands of people coming into Maple Ridge. And so I raised our price to like $3,000 because I thought, you know what, that one day alone is going to be worth so much money. And your market is worth it. You have all these people, especially now, that are shoppers specifically coming through your market. These people have money, they understand quality, and they want to spend it locally. Like, you need to wrap around your head that you are very valuable, especially at this moment, because there's no other events happening, nowhere else to sponsor, and some people still have a valuable disposable income that you can tap into. So having their logo on the website, that's not enough. You need to go further. Do an Instagram story takeover, do Facebook Live post. think about all of the different aspects where you can have people reach to them. So it is about you. I lied. Some of it is about you. So they just need to hear about your story for sure. But again, it's matching that vision statement of yours to theirs. And then being very specific about how their ROI, their return on investment, is going to be. So you say 800 people walk through this only entrance coming into the market. They're going to walk by your sign every time, you know, or they're going to receive this email. You have 2,000 people on your email newsletter list. They're going to have that click through, offer them a promotion, whatever you want. That's kind of, or boost a social media post for $5 so it gets like 1,000 people engagement. Take that out of your budget. Like there's so many things you can do to make that reach for them even bigger. But like Kevin O'Leary says, they're out there thinking, where's the money? Like, what's my return on that? So you can sell it to them in terms of staff and people and demographics and what you have. Stats are your friends. So again, if you've got that economic benefit survey that the BCAFM did, that's huge. So make sure you add that into the sponsor's information, as well as how many people are coming through, as well as your social media stats. And oh, we're on a different thing. Okay. And then describe your demographics. We already talked about that. Oh, and then how many people follow you on social media, if you've won any awards, any recognition that you've had. Just talk about how important you are to the community and sell yourself that way. You are this important commodity, a valuable platform. You have a lot to offer. And why wouldn't you want to spend $500 to sponsor the market for the day? So yeah, so we kind of talked about this, the mission statement matching up, and also your audience's demographic. So if they match with the potential sponsors, then you're good to go. There is no reason why they wouldn't want to sponsor. You'd be amazed at how you just walk in and you say, hey, do you want to spend $500 and do this? And people are like, yeah, I do. Or do you want to spend more and sponsor the month? Totally, that works for me. It's for them, it's a marketing business decision. Next slide. So this is a signage we put up on our opening day. Oh, I'm confused here. This is a signage we put up on our opening day. So we had Maple Washing, and they came and they put up this really giant sign. I asked them if they had a 10 by 10 tent that people could walk through. They didn't, but they had this wonderful sign that they do at trade shows, which are canceled. And then they had these stand-up banners that they put out throughout the sign. I followed up with them afterwards. They said they got a ton of phone calls because they were seen at the farmer's market. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Like that's exactly what we were set out to do. Okay, so you can have a variety of options available. Like I said, do it like an online shopping cart. So for us, like I do signage in the market, might be 125, depending on what it is, a tent or something else. Do they want an ad in the newsletter? Sure, add it on, $50. Staff wearing their shirts. If they've got shirts, we can do that for 100. Social media shout outs, we can do that for 75. It's really up to you to set the pricing based on your community. I mean, I would sell a day of between $250 to $400 and maybe more for the month. Depending on how many people come through your market, you might want to sell it for a little lower. You might want to just try it for the season and see how it goes. And just you need to find that sweet spot. Like how much is it where people aren't put off by it, or don't rate yourself too low. So you can always go in. I've asked local people, like the What's On magazine, like how much do you sell advertising space for in your email newsletter? So I've gone on and done some research in the local area to see how much people are paying for advertising and what their reach is. So you need to make it comparable for what you have access to. So once you've created this partnership, it's really important to follow up. Don't just be like, hey, thanks, and then take their money and then just let them go. These are people that are potentially going to continue working with you And so if they provide a testimonial, that's going to help, and you can even get more people coming in, because Amanda from Maple Washing said that you brought in 5 different referrals for them. What could you have done differently to meet their needs better? There is definitely work involved in nurturing those sponsorship relationships. If you're hard pressed for time, this is also a really good thing to pass on to board members and have them go out in the business community. Just make sure that you're in touch with them all the time, and making sure that their message is the same as your message, or providing them with all of that. And once you get all this information back from the sponsors, you can help craft an even better sponsorship package the next time around. So it's just really about listening and communicating with your business community and seeing what they need. Yeah, that's it for sponsorship. Do we want to do questions, or do we want to wait till the end?
So again, there was no questions. There was one regarding the amount of money you're charging sponsors for a day, but you answered this question and you mentioned $500, if I understood well.
It's fluctuating, right? It just depends. Like, what do they want? So just crafting it to what their budget is, and making sure that they're not left out if they only have, 125 or 200. Like, I want to know what I'm going to add on. Of course, this gets a little tricky, because let's say one person wants to book it just an ad in your newsletter for the day, and that's like $75, but then somebody says, well, I really want that day and I want to pay $500. The $75 person will have to probably take another date, because just be like, hey, you know what, like, I've got somebody that came in with a bigger price, it's great for our society, can I move you to this day or this day instead? So just being mindful of the fact that, like, you need the money because you're a nonprofit society, and it's really important for us to be sustainable during this time, especially.
I think that your presentation was awesome, Melissa. I really appreciate how you carved up the opportunities at the market, not just the market, but like really isolating some of those pieces that matter to people. Like the McDonald Realty stage sponsorship. I know that's, non-COVID time, but still, like, there's and even that market day, like sponsoring a market day, I feel like every market, regardless of COVID or not, could be doing that. And I think, let's not generalize, but let's just pretend that was a $500 sponsorship for sponsor this week's market day, and the average market runs for 3 to 4 months. That's anywhere from 12 days to 16 days times 500. Like, that is a nice little chunk of change towards the operating revenues in your market, right? So that one's got a lot of legs, I think, for markets to be thinking about.
I basically feel like everything is for sale at the market. Everything. Like, if I get new signage done, I can put logos on it. Who wants to pay me to add that on? I mean, obviously you don't want it to be like a jumble of like a ton of different things, but there's no reason why. Like, I'm getting stat shirts made. Who wants to put their logo on it? Who wants to pay for the shirts? Like, every part of the market is for sale. So we are a very valuable commodity. People come to us. We're the only thing happening right now. So, like, I'm super happy to go out into the community and make sure that, we're getting our due, and we're getting recognized for that, because we are valuable.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. And we already have some comments that, Melissa, you are amazing. And you already stimulated people to send emails. So probably emails to sponsors or businesses, local businesses that they did not reach out to before. Yeah. So that's great.
Your enthusiasm is infectious. Like, I was excited. I mean, I like sponsorship anyways, but I was really excited.
Right? It's awesome. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So next topic.
This one's quick. It's just kind of funny, because we have a fundraising committee with our board, and a few times now we've had board meetings where, like, there's no fundraising during COVID, and I'm like, I beg to differ. Because we're online, we have a lot of opportunities, and we have lots of different things that we can do. So I've been watching the other nonprofits in my community, and these are some of the things that they've come up with. Let's see what we can do. All right. Documentary movie watching. If you have somebody who's quite technically inclined, you can actually do a Netflix watching party. It takes a little bit of work to put it all together, but it's really fun. You can charge tickets, partner up with a restaurant. They can do delivery or they do pickup. So you sell like $25 to $30 for a dinner plus a movie. There's a movie I just watched on Netflix called, I think, The Biggest Little Farm. That would be perfect. It's all about a biodynamic farm over like a 8-year period. So everyone watches together. It's kind of exciting, and then you get like a lovely meal out of it. So the virtual walk or run, so I've done this with another charity. Now that there's no marathons happening, you can still sign up for a team and you can do the walk yourself. So you can fundraise, you can say, hey, I'm fundraising. Again, it really helps if you have a specific thing that you're fundraising for, because you don't want people like, I'm fundraising for my wages. No one wants to see that. So if you've got like, I'm fundraising for signage because COVID has like flattened us and we need like $1,000 to make signs, that's a cause and that's something that people will get behind. So start a team. We need $1,000. Let's get this done. So like the virtual walk or run is a good one. I've seen a few people do online shopping sales, which is kind of cool, especially the artisans. Fall is coming, guys. It's Christmas time. Nobody wants to go to the mall. Put together like a Facebook album or Instagram, get like donated items from the vendors and start selling. It's a little bit of work, but that's what your board is for. Get them involved, get them to volunteer and collect these things. So there's also online auction. I believe 32 auctions will do it for free for nonprofits, so you can look into that. That's the same and a little bit easier to do than the Facebook or Instagram. So you just get a bunch of donated items or you buy items. I'm not a big fan of going out to vendors and getting donations. So this is a good one of like, I'm happy to pay for it and we'll see what the bidding will be. Maybe they give you a discount instead of just flat out getting it. Virtual discussions, hold an unconference. So you can have your farmers talking about winter gardening or like putting their plants to bed, have somebody doing a knitting conference and have, this is a cool thing where you can do it for your vendors, have the fees go to your vendor. And so that way, like they're going to promote it and they're going to want it. We did quite a few virtual open mics when the COVID started through Zoom. The sound isn't great, but it's still fun. It was in your living room and you got direct access to the musicians, which was really cool. And so we would just put in the Zoom chat to make a donation to the musician, email them an email transfer here. And so that was really fun too. It's just a great way to keep your people engaged. It can make your vendors money, it can make you money, but it's still like you're still here and you're still doing things for your community, which is important. And then, ooh, virtual paint or craft night. I've seen this one quite a few times. So you can pair up with one of your artisan vendors. They can do like a painting, set it up with a supply store. Maybe you have an art supply store that can do a package for you. And again, like maybe set up with one of your wine vendors or your cheese vendor or put it together. Like just get creative with it. A birthday challenge, I see these on Facebook all the time. Again, pick a cause. You don't want to be like, we need to pay for my assistant manager. It's like, we need to pay for pylons or barricades or more tables or a tent. People love to sponsor stuff. Think of all those like buy a goat for a family in Africa. People love ownership of things. There's also a virtual raffle too, so you can get really awesome prizes, maybe make some baskets, put them together. Make sure you get your Class D license for that kind of stuff though, because the government does like to see you, make sure you're accountable for that. So there's tons of stuff to do during COVID right now. It's just a matter of finding the time to put it all together. That's what your board is for. But yeah, and that's it for me.
Well, that was awesome. So I mean, I'm just like, I mean, you were really amalgamating, consolidating farmers markets, starting an online store, hosting all these fundraising events, and that's like starting in end of March.
Yeah.
It's August 12th. So like that, just like wow, amazing.
I like money.
Well, I think just a comment. Like I've worked in nonprofit for now about close to, well, not almost 20 years, not for 15 years, I guess at this point, 16 years. And I think what's amazing about generating revenue on your terms is the freedom it brings you. Okay. So grants are wonderful, not just county grants.
No.
Those kinds of funding sources are wonderful for all kinds of reasons, but they generally are very much about a program or a project and very little to do with sustaining your organizational needs. Like your core people, like the good people that run markets need to be paid for, right? So what it brings is freedom. It's liberating. It might be a lot of work, and it might require people to think a little differently about generating revenue, but it's absolute. My promise is it's liberating, and the freedom that money brings your market or your nonprofit to do what needs to get done, to do what you want to do with it. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm beating a dead horse here, but it's profoundly important how like the freedom to act and do what you need to do with money you generate is such a different experience for some people who've never had that before.
Yeah, for sure. Especially smaller markets. Like I could see that this would be great if you can sponsor, even if you get $75 for market day, you know, and you do an online auction with market products. Honestly, like something I tell to everybody that I've been an event planner for 20 years, like something I tell to everybody that's in this industry is like, always celebrate whatever your wins are and don't think about what you could have gotten because that's just going to burn you out. As a fundraiser, our burnout rate is really, really short. So you just want to like, hey, I got $150 for this opening day, or like we made $250 online. That's awesome. And you can only go up from there.
I also think you've, throughout this presentation, painted markets for what they are, which is many things to many people, but a place of abundance. You have an abundance of what you offer the world and all kinds of people, including vendors and everything else in between it, or communities in general. And, you know, it's like going out into the world with that valuing yourself and the abundance you bring to your community as a market, as opposed to scarcity or we need or we don't have. Like it's a really different kind of approach.
Yeah.
And it really, I think, empowers markets to think of themselves like we have a lot of stuff to offer here.
Yeah.
And people want to help support it, and they want to invest in this because they care about it too.
And the more excited you are, the more exciting they're going to be. If you come in looking for a handout and be like, oh, can you please like sponsor this? Like that's not a good business way to look at it. You want to go in there and say, hey, watch Shark Tank or Dragon's Den. Just look at the way that they ask for money. You'd be like, I have this opportunity and it's amazing. And if you don't jump on board, like that's crazy talk. You need to come to the market and be there.
Yeah. And then just a point on stats. You know, these are pretty low tech stats for most markets can probably muster. This isn't about academic research, statistically validated stuff, okay? Number of followers on your social media platforms is compelling stats.
Yeah.
If a market has 2,000 people following them on Facebook, that is a big deal for a real estate agent who may want to sponsor market day, okay?
Yeah.
Your number of customers in the market, you know, like having, and I know one of the issues with our markets is the capacity to do these kinds of things. I get it. We understand that. We sympathize with that. That said, it's kind of like how to build that into your market operations. So, because you can see how those things matter for generating revenue and investors and sponsors. So it was worth the effort. It was worth the $500. Say you had to pay a couple of people for one day to kind of track attendance or however you want to do that. It gives you some baseline data to extrapolate across your market season to go, you know, it's about 30% less in the beginning. And anyways, make a long story short, it's quite powerful for this purpose of fundraising and sponsorships, and like how much reach does that market have, right?
And even if your attendance numbers are lower than what you're used to, you really have to think that these are quality quality customers that are coming. Not saying that they weren't quality before, but I'm saying that these are people who are ready to shop and spend money. Whereas before, there's a lot of people coming for the atmosphere and like the samples and the kids' activities. These are people, even if you went from 800 to 400, those 400 people are spending money. They're spending $50 to $100 per market.
Yeah, so that's a very, very good point too. Like right now in the time of COVID, especially, right? Like they can't come for the live entertainment.
No.
Or, you know, in the same way that it used to be. That's a very, very important point. It's quality, not quantity.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, for savvy sponsors who get it, they want an audience who is aligned with their values. You know, does that farmer's market shopper or thing, like match their values as a business? Like, do they have big interest in community, or are they environmentally motivated? You know, social benefit, all those things. So, farmers markets offer a lot of social capital.
Yeah.
Or for like-minded kinds of businesses, right? I think the other, I just wanted to make a comment about. It's not a one size fits all. Like none of our markets are the same. That's one of the great strengths of BCFM member markets. We've got small, medium, large, urban, rural, suburban, some who've chosen to do online, some have chosen not to, and it's all awesome. In terms of the sponsorship, some markets may come up against some friction around allowing, if you will, private businesses or corporations to sponsor their parts of their market or their market days or what have you. I mean, everyone's going to have probably a different opinion of that, or whether they like that or not. But have you come up against that at any time in doing this?
Definitely. I make sure that all sponsorship requests or inquiries come through me, and I vet them. And I vet them for match on our end, because if they aren't a match on our end and they don't have the same values, like, you know, as much as I admire some of the cannabis industry folks in Maple Ridge, probably not a good fit for our market. Just also like MLM businesses, like if somebody from Epicure, or I totally love their company, I love what they're doing, again, not a match for our market. So I vet people 100%. If the people like perhaps are in the news or unsavory or like whatever, even if you've got a business, no, it has to match the values of our market 100%. And that means I'm turning down money, but I'm okay with that, because our reputation and our optics of the market is what we're selling. And so like I can't have that go bad.
Yeah, no, that's a really important process you have. It's not just anybody who wants to. Like it needs to be a fit and a match, and you're willing to say no, and that's okay. I mean, we do that at BCFM too, right? So yeah, good. Yeah, did you have any comments from you or anybody else?
No questions, no more comments coming in. I think we all really appreciated Melissa's presentation, especially. I was about to share takeaways, but I think you beautifully summarized the webinar. And if people just want to forward to this summary piece of the webinar recording, I think it would be great also for the others that were not able to attend. Yes, Heather.
Yeah, did you, I think Melissa had created a bit of a sampler sponsorship package.
I was about to, yeah. So the sponsorship package is already in the BCFM Tools and Resources section on our website. So bcfarmersmarket.org website. So you go in the Tools and Resources section and it's under funding and sponsorship. We'll also share this package in the email to all member markets when we share the recording. So it's going to be accessible also there. So I guess I'll just thank you for sharing all these experiences and knowledge, and thanks for the participants who joined us today. I hope that this was helpful, and feel free to ask us questions by email or also by other channels, Google group, and so on. I think, Melissa, you're on the Google group too,
yeah,
the member market Google group. So
We also have a Facebook group, the Makers, Bakers, Growers of BC. So I'll share the presentation once you have it on YouTube onto there. And then we have a wide variety of different like vendors and markets involved. So yeah.
Awesome.
Great
Very
idea.
good. Thank you so much, Melissa. That was such a great stuff for us. Yeah. Thanks, Gab, for hosting us.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Will do.
Bye, everybody.